he's now going, they're going to put more money in, more investment.
Well, is it just got that bit of traction? I mean, it's the one news story that won't die. It's Cameron is breaking up our NHS, so every political party is just going to jump on the bandwagon and say, well, we're not going to do this, and then Cameron's going to turn around and say, oh, and we're not going to do this either. So what's the big story? And then the media just plays out the washing machine of information.
I spend a lot of time looking at people's comments online, right? And the most interesting thing about it all is everybody says the NHS shouldn't be paying for certain things, they shouldn't be given certain types of operations. Usually anything to do with women is what they come out with, but they're saying
there's like tattoos and probably alcohol and those kind of things.
Yep, they shouldn't be paying for people who are drunk. If you're drunk, you should pay, and you get injured, you should pay for it yourself. If you waste the GP's time or hospital's time, you should pay for it. Boob jobs, sex changes shouldn't be paid for. They're even talking about certain levels of people should pay to go and see your GP.
So I believe in case by case, and that needs to be, in theory, a lot better than it currently is. Why wouldn't you give a boob job to a double mastectomy patient? To make her feel better about herself and her own self-image, rather than a 17-year-old that thinks their boobs are too small.
But what if that affects them psychologically? That's a health issue, isn't it?
Well, if they're self-harming because of that, then that's a case-by-case basis again. But the people are jumping on this because the majority of people, in theory, that would be having
the thing is that people are worried about the cuts. I mean, that's for me. That's the thing which was going to determine how I vote. Is I'm worried about how much they're cutting. It has been cutting a lot, and the NHS is something which is so important. Is how old is it? It's 60 years, whatever it is. So it's something that's so very important. So it has to be saved. And there's this thing called there's this thing which they're trying to get private money to private companies to own parts of the NHS, which is very, very scary. So there's something which is we have to protect, because once that goes, because Americans, their system, they don't value human life. They don't. I admit it's too strong, but they don't value health of their people. And if you don't value the health of the people, then therefore the next step is that person's not so important than another person. It's dangerous. So we have to value our NHS. It's one of those things which we people have fought for, and it's something that has to be protected.
I completely agree. The thing about the US though is the propaganda machine, corporate propaganda machine in the US is the NHS is a socialist movement. It's a communist movement. How dare we change the ways
these Americans, just get a passport, travel, find out about the world, but open your mind. It's annoying.
Again, let me stand in defence of our American cousins.
Go for it.
But like I said, I don't think what you got to understand about America is it's not just the corporations who are against that whole system of socialised care. It's that whole American ethos of
rugged individualism.
Yeah, state being involved in this. I can choose whatever I want to do. Even though America's greatest growth came under a socialist act, which was after the Second World War. I can't remember whether it was Woodrow Wilson, whoever it was.
Must be Roosevelt.
Roosevelt brought in loads of policies that gave America its greatest boom. The baby boomers. That was socialism.
The New Deal.
Done that. But jumping, not to get off too far off track, I just want to know. We all agree that the NHS is great, but it's the biggest employer in Europe.
Yeah.
They get a call every 1 to 10 seconds for help. There's a lot of money going to it. The population's getting bigger, but there's only so much money you can give. Yep. What do we do? How do we keep going forward? Do we keep going? We're going to put more money in it?
So is the population getting bigger, or you're talking about the elderly population's getting bigger? Which one do you mean?
Both. The population has gone up, and the elderly population is going to continue going.
Reduce Trident and stick it into the NHS. How's that?
Hey, come the revolution, brother. I'm with you on that one. I think that would be the best idea ever. And I've always said it. Why do we have Trident? I know people say it's a deterrent, but I feel sorry for the man that ever has to decide to launch one of those, because that in itself would be an act of genocide. And who would want that on their shoulders? And I know, it's a big thing to go, do you know what? What's more important, the NHS or having nuclear missiles that nobody's ever going to want to fire? There's no circumstances
you just don't know. I tried and obviously I don't know how much is it, $1 billion or how much it costs.
It's like $6 billion a submarine.
Right, but at the same time, the first step of government is of sovereignty is to protect and to leave. If we don't have it, then you're leaving yourself wide open.
What?
That's the thing. We don't know. It's the unknown.
No, but what I'm saying is we do know. The circumstances you might launch a nuclear missile, that somebody's going to launch one against you, right?
Yeah. Okay.
The second instance might be a terrorist act, but a terrorist act in its nature usually isn't a state-run act. It's an act by individuals, right? So who would you fire that missile at?
Great point.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, as much as I understand, people think it's defence. I don't think it's any actual sort of defence. It may be a deterrent to.
Okay, if we don't
may be a deterrent to Russia. But even if we didn't have nuclear missiles, Russia invade the UK. The only reason they took over almost half of Europe is because we agreed to let them have it. We made an agreement with them during World War II going, you can have this, we'll have that. And that's what happened. Do you know what I mean?
How about this? You have state-funded politicians. Politicians don't take a wage. They take what they feel that is the right wage, and it's a donation to them. And they don't get any bonus, don't get any commission. They work as a service for the state, and I would say their income should be the average means tested income for the entire nation. And it is a privilege to be in that, to have that level of privilege by being an MP.
They don't have a separate job. That's their sole job.
That's their sole job. They don't have a separate job, and in fact, they shouldn't really take a wage. You are a public servant. Yes. Okay, you need enough subsistence to live, but why don't you just have the state providing how they live, where they live, and providing all food and accommodation? Put that money into the NHS. That's a hell of a lot of money.
No, I'm with you. I think they get paid far too much money at the moment. I think the system just opens itself up to corruption. Honestly, I just think Parliament shouldn't even be in London.
Isn't it like 67 grand a year if you are a member of Parliament? 67 grand. And some of those guys have second jobs. Whoa, hold on a second. There's lots of people in this country that are making 10 grand a year and they are working their socks off.
And no, they have multiple jobs and don't get anywhere near that amount of money.
Exactly that.
I don't know. I think we've got to do something as to what it is. I don't know. My ideal dream situation is we have two elected chambers. People get paid, like you said, the average wage that everybody else gets paid.
Yep.
They all have to live in the same place. I'm fed up with this second homes thing. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't see the need for it. Like students do. They have the MP halls somewhere. All of them living together in the same place if need be, and that's it. If they've got to live away from home, none of this second home stuff. Because even the scandal over they weren't getting allowances for a second home. They had to rent.
Yeah.
But all the people that had homes are now renting out those homes and making money off of those second homes now.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous again for that situation to be arising.
I don't know. For me, the Parliament should be in London. I know. Okay, to be more fair, it should be like Midlands probably, but London is the centre of power in the UK, so it should stay there. But you're right. We should have elected. Both houses of Parliament should be elected.
London's capital. London's a capital city, but very few countries have their parliaments in the capital city. London's one of the very few. I think London and France. Germany doesn't have their parliament in the capital city. I don't believe. America doesn't have it in the.
Don't want to be like them.
In their biggest city. You don't need it in the biggest.
It's not in their biggest city, but it is their capital city.
Yeah. Sorry. Like Washington's not the biggest city, but it is their capital. We don't need to have it in the capital city. I think it's just tradition that's happened. And as you know, I'm not a big fan of tradition all the time. But there you go. That's me. I don't want to abuse you on my thoughts. Right, moving on, because we are running through time. It's disappearing from us. So moving on.
What's next?
I was going to talk about charity, but I'll do that in a moment. I just want to get your views quickly, if I may. A couple of weeks ago, a guy punched a guy at work and this week he got the sack.
Finally.
Is that a good thing? If
Yes.
people assault people at work, is there a difference of opinion on this? Because as I go around online, a lot of people have the opinion that it was wrong. In fact, they're threatening the people that actually sacked him.
Yeah.
And I put this to you: is it because the guy was a guy? If it was a woman that got struck, not that I'm saying that the man involved would have hit a woman, but if it was a woman, would we even be debating this? Is there something about violence against men which is, in the media's eyes anyway, much more acceptable at a workplace?
I think there's two things here. The first word is why, and the second one is, am I a chauvinist by thinking that if it was a woman, then it's instant dismissal and it should be, he should be hung, drawn, and quartered, and his head put on a spike in Westminster. But
Traditionalist you are.
Yeah, that might be the wrong way of looking at it. But the thing is, why did that happen in the first place? Yes, okay, I've heard rumours that it's because over a lunch or dinner. And
a piece of meat.
A piece of meat. But that does not make sense. Come on, Clarkson
that truly was what it was all about. It was over him not getting his dinner when he got back from a long day's filming and getting into an argument with with one of the guys who was producing on the show.
Yeah.
And he did get the piece of meat in the end, but it was a 30-minute tirade up against this guy, which ended up with him being struck. Which I don't get why people are threatening the guy. This guy's been threatened online. The chairman of the BBC has been threatened with violence.
I know. But
has the world gone slightly? Did I fall asleep and wake up in some weird dimension?
No, but what it is, I think a lot of people jump on the bandwagon. I remember that guy who was shot. I think shot a policeman up north, the Moat or somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's a Facebook page supporting the guy who shot. I don't know. You kind of. My view of human beings starts to be really low these days, because it's just very weird, very strange, supporting people who are obviously, that guy should have been sacked straight away. Anyone else, but because it's Jeremy Clarkson, who's some kind of god, who he isn't, they put him onto this high pedestal, and he should have gone ages ago. Is
this because I'm too, if you look at the internet, you do get the worst view of humanity, right? But then nobody I've spoken to, even those of a slightly who love Top Gear, not one of them has turned around and gone, no, they've gone, look, I like him, but he hit someone, it was time for him to go. Is this just the internet again influencing my view of humanity?
No.
Influence your view of humanity. I'm not sure even this event can influence your view of humanity, but yes. So a manager hit an employee that is lower down the food chain. Yes, they should be fired. Not necessarily depending on what was said or how a circumstance happened. Violence should absolutely not be the course of action. And because it has been, yes, he deserves to be fired. But in fact, what is going to happen is he's going to get a pay rise, go to the next place, and it's going to be he's going to be even more famous worldwide than he is already. So it's not going to harm him in any way, but he did absolutely the wrong thing. It's completely atrocious, but it still comes down to, come on, please, somebody just think about this guy that has been there for 28 years, 29 years doing the same TV show. He is a world recognized figure. Why would he stoop to something so low? Why? He did do it. I'm not saying he didn't do it and he shouldn't be fired, but why?
I did actually hear something. I'm not sure. I was at the National Theatre yesterday, and I did hear something from these people. I don't know. I'm not sure if they were related to him, but he was maybe on some kind of self-destructive mode. And that could be something like that. Maybe he's having a
midlife crisis.
I don't believe he did it just willy-nilly out of whatever. I think whatever's going on in his life, fair enough, it's difficult, but he inflicted that upon somebody else. What I would always say is, again, and this is what gets me about this whole situation, he's been sacked by the BBC, right?
Finally.
Yeah, but he's going to get hired by whether it's ITV or Sky or whatever.
He will.
Yeah. Again, if he'd struck a woman, Would that be acceptable for him to be hired again? Because I know a lot of presenters who have been involved with violence against women and eventually did get their jobs back, but it was a couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay, they were, no, you're not coming back on the show, we don't want anything to do with you. I think that's, I can't remember, it was a football player who's now doing punditry.
Stan Coleman.
Yeah, right. So that happened.